Aloha. This is the ThinkTech Hawaii show, the state of Hawaii. This is a bi-weekly show, and we're glad you're here, viewers. I'm your host, Stephanie Dalton, and we'll start talking shortly. Hi. Aloha again. Welcome to this show, the state of Hawaii, and we are discussing Hawaii education today. So, as you know, Hawaii is the only state. We're special in this regard. We're the only state that manages public schools through the state agency or the Department of Education, Hawaii's Department of Education, which of course is run by its board, the Hawaii Board of Education. And of course, the legislature has its important say too. So we're going to also shout out to the week we're in, which is National Teacher Appreciation Week. And the special shout out is, of course, the star of that week is the state teacher of the year, who hails this year from Kalani High School. And his name is Michael Ida. So congratulations to Michael, and also to all the teachers out there. I know everybody's working really hard, and that we all really appreciate the tremendous efforts and sacrifice that teachers are making every single day. So our topic today then is about education and how it's emerging from the pandemic that we experienced the last couple of years. And so there's been some developments from the Hawaii legislature and also from the federal national report card that we wanted to report on. And I'm saying we because we include a wonderful expert guest, Cheri Nakamura, who is the director of a coalition that is nonprofit and community-based. And it is HE'e, and that's the Hui for Excellence in Education. So please take a look at their website, and I'm sure you have a chance to learn more there and also talk with them if you wish. So we would like to take a look at what has happened as we've come out of the pandemic. And we know that we're back to fully in-person education, and that's a big accomplishment. But we also know that we've had some developments from the legislature, and that is pretty much good news, right, Cheri? Welcome, Cheri. Do you agree that that's good news that we're getting from the legislature?
Yes, we have some good news coming out of the pandemic. Because Hawaii was a state that went to in-person learning quicker than other states, we think that we've gotten back on track a bit. In fact, I think in October, the NAEP results, so that's the National Assessment for Education Progress, or the nation's scorecard, results were released, and Hawaii was pretty much in the middle of the pack. So there weren't significantly more states ahead of us or below us. But especially for the fourth grade results, I think we were a bit above national averages. And one could say that, the effect of, or one might say that the effect of going in person, back in person, full in person quickly was a contributing factor for stability in those results. So I have them right here. The math fourth grade proficiency was 37%, and the reading was 33%. I know they don't sound very high, but we're right in or a little bit above the average for the fourth grade. Now for the eighth grade, though, we did have some slippage. Math was at 22% proficiency, and reading was at 31% proficiency. So I think as a system, it reminds us that we need to do a little more to investigate why, as students get older, the performance does decrease.
Well, Cheri, tell us a little bit about when you say that the math at fourth grade or the reading at fourth grade was 33rd percentile, and the math was at 37th percentile, which was a little bit above the average in the country. But what does that percentile mean? Is that proficiency level, or what can you talk a bit about that, please?
My understanding of these NAEP results, that is a proficiency marker. So 37% of the fourth graders were proficient at that level math.
Okay, that means that they're reading, can we say at grade level, like we used to say?
Yes.
That when they're proficient, that would mean that they're reading at the expected level they should be for that.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
So, what do you think about that level? It's in the 30s. Is that in the high 30s? Well, the reading's in the low 30s. So, can you talk a little bit about what that might mean for our students?
Yes. So, obviously, we would like a higher percentage. So, the NAEP has its own reading and scoring assessment, but the state also has its own assessments. It's called the Smarter Balance Assessment that we administer to various grades in our system. I think it's 3rd through 6th, 8th, and 11th grade, if I'm not mistaken. And on those assessments, we are scoring a little bit higher, and I have the numbers right here. So for English language arts last year, we were at 52% proficiency for English language arts and 39% in proficient in math. So this is statewide. So we are a little bit higher than what we've seen in the NAEP. Nonetheless, I think we would all like to see higher numbers for both English, math. Actually, there's also science. Science proficiency was at 40% proficiency in the state. That said, we do have what we call an achievement gap. So that is the performance of non-high needs students versus high needs students. And for our economically disadvantaged students, the proficiency numbers are significantly lower. So for English, only 39% of our economically disadvantaged students are proficient in English compared to 52%. 20% of our economically disadvantaged students are proficient compared to 39% of all students. And science, the number is 27% for our economically disadvantaged students compared to all students at 40%. So I think overall, we do desire higher proficiencies, not only for all students, but especially for our economically disadvantaged students, our English learner students, and our special education students.
Well, I know that you do oversee and review how the department and its board and the legislator look at what is going on in the school and report out on it and support it or raise, fund it. So there's a lot of money that has come into the state over the last year as it came into all states, but millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars came in.
Hundreds of millions, actually.
Hundreds of millions. So can you talk a little bit about what you know and what you've seen the state has decided to do with that, or it would probably be the departments and the education board's decision as to how to apply it?
Yes. So a bit about how all of this works. So the legislature is the body that decides how much gets allocated, how much money gets allocated to the Department of Education through its budget. So the department proposes a budget to the governor, and then the governor makes some changes, and the governor then recommends his or her budget to the legislature, and the legislature makes some changes. So that's really how our Department of Education gets funded. Meanwhile, though, during COVID-19, we had additional funding that came in from the federal government. And it was an extraordinary amount. Almost $1 billion came in, and I think it was 2 or 3 years. And it came in tranches. And I think it was money that was needed to help not only combat and make sure our schools were safe, but also to help with the negative effects of the pandemic. We had distance learning for a while. There was one quarter where the school shut down completely. So, and in addition to that, there were a lot of social and emotional needs that need to be addressed. So monies have been allocated. The thing that's not so clear for us is that while we know that the funds have been allocated to various categories, we're not quite sure what the impact has been. I mean, have things changed such that, mental health cases have decreased, or is there a way of tracking whether or not schools are actually safer? Or with respect to learning loss, has there been a significant improvement because the monies were used for certain programs or strategies? Those kinds of things are still not very clear.
Well, that is a purpose of the program, is to help convey that information if we can get it, or we can try to incentivize parents and community to pursue that information. And I think that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you, since I'm understanding that, and from your previous presentations, that the decision making about the strategies or the approaches that schools are going to take in supporting or bringing the students back to their performance levels that they may not be at because of the pandemic, but that those decisions are mostly made at the schools. So at the school level. So I think that when we're thinking about citizens and parents and community, that they have an important role here to play. Is that what's expected by the department and the legislature?
I definitely think that parents and community can certainly ask the questions of their children's school. How has the pandemic affected that particular school? What kind of strategies are being employed to help get kids back on track? Is the communication between the school and parents, adequate enough so that there's information so that parents feel confident and secure? And that's at the school level. But remember, our system is made up of a tri-level. So there are complex areas which are not similar to districts, but they often cover, let's say, a K-12 continuum, let's say 6 elementary schools, a middle school, and a high school. And then there's the complex area. And then, of course, we have the state office, which includes leadership, but also, curriculum department, student support department, IT, strategy, etc. So we really encourage the department to try to, provide adequate communication. We've even suggested maybe even having a parent portal where a parent could just log on and see, the information pertaining to their children, even if their children are attending different schools. So I think communication is key. And we do in our advocacy keep urging the department to provide a system where it's user-friendly. And on the accountability side, we also keep encouraging the department and the Board of Education to ask for and for the department to provide some detail on impact of some of the initiatives that they are using. To be honest, we're still not crystal clear on a lot of the specifics, but we keep asking nevertheless.
Well, that's very interesting. So you're asking and you're providing guidance, or maybe how to do these things. But is anybody doing that? In other words, in the complexes where they feel what it is that they accomplish. I mean, because middle school is getting the elementary students, and they're reading at what grade level? Is it the grade level they're supposed to be? So, I mean, are there feedback mechanisms there, or on the professional side of things, which we may or may not know, I suppose is what you're saying, but is that also a place for parents to be involved? And do they come together more than PTA, or is there any way to bring them to get them to put their voices into it, to ask for some outcome?
I think that there are definitely parents and parent groups who are engaged and who do go down to that level. unfortunately, because our state is so expensive, the cost of living is so expensive, many parents struggle with, multiple jobs, and it's not as easy for these parents to engage, even though they want to. So it is a challenge. We try to encourage engagement at wherever a parent is, and our organization tries to be a place where a parent or community member or group could get the information of how the system works and how a feedback can be provided at a systems level. But if they wanted to participate at the school level, we could certainly help them. We could facilitate that as well.
Well, yes, because it seems that this is a little bit different from the way it was before, olden days, but also other places where in order to get into a school, you have to go through the agency, right? And come down that way. I mean, this really kind of maybe is open sesame at the school level if they're down there making the decisions, and if people are aware of it, that they have a voice in that and can get in there and who those citizens would be, I don't know, because as you say, people are very busy out here in Hawaii trying to live and make their monthly nuts. But I just wondered if there was much activity at that level. And I know that's really hard to organize. But I mean, there are school improvement committees, attached to other schools that I've been involved with in the mainland. And is there is there a niche for this? I mean, is there actually a box that people know is there that they could fill up and get into more of a dialogue with their schools? Is this a ridiculous question, or
no? It's not a ridiculous question, actually. So the board and the department are currently engaging in a 6-year strategic plan process, and actually one of the goals is to have active family and community engagement such that communication is effective and that input can be provided that may affect decision making. So that's actually a goal. And we're pleased that the board and the department have decided to include that as a goal. And so we have already given some suggestions as to, what might be useful, like, for example, a parent portal. And we'll continue to, advocate for things that parents and communities would feel could be useful.
Yes. And then with this level of performance, it sounds like the state assessments are looking a little bit better than the National Assessment of Educational Progress, or the national report card, which is encouraging. But it seems that the people may or may not know that they can approach. But of course, the money would always come from the department, right? I mean, it's complicated. I guess I'm getting into maybe things that we can't know about because they're internal. But as those $750 million were, I think we've added up some numbers like to 750 million, something like that. But in the past, as it came in when we were looking at ESSER, but then that all, of course, goes to the top, goes into the agency, and then I guess the legislature has to do with how that's going to be disposed or deployed.
Actually, the ESSER funds were all decided by the department. So the legislature really didn't have a discretion over those funds. They went directly to the department. The legislature on its own has the discretion to appropriate funds to the department for its state budget. So this year was the first year of the biennium. And the legislature went through and decided, we're not quite sure what the final product looks like, but the department made the request, the governor made the request, and the legislature went through and made decisions about what they felt would be the most strategic and appropriate for Department of Education. So that's separate. It's a separate funding process. The ESSER funds were specifically for pandemic recovery. And it was an extraordinary amount, again, almost $1 billion, $750 million. But that went directly to the department. And once again, our organization has been trying to get a little more specifics on not just what was spent, but what the impact has been, because of course we want to know if it was an investment or if it were appropriated to or used for programs. We want to have a sense of what programs were useful or not useful.
Okay, so now ESSER stands for the Elementary and Secondary Schools Educational Recovery. What is that acronym standing for? Do you remember right now?
I don't remember right off, but yes, it's for the pandemic recovery. It was for the pandemic recovery.
Educational Recovery. Okay, Recovery Act. All right, so is it likely you're going to get any information, in other words, and did the schools, since the feds directed that money to the schools, are they going to report back to the feds on what they did with the money, or was there no requirement for that?
I don't think, I think the state agency might have to file some report, but I don't think the schools are going to have to write their own report. So I think really the money was very generous for, dealing with the effects of the pandemic. And I think so long as the department can justify that it was used for pandemic recovery, I think that was enough. Again, we would want to have a little more specific, and we would hope that the monies were used for things that were strategic and could help be useful going forward.
And you're looking for outcomes is admirable. And if you're going to find any of those, I really think, and if they're not publishing them, we ought to talk about those at some point, because if these numbers are going to stay the same, I mean, presumably, can't we assume that with this kind of money coming into state, yes, we do have to get back to proficiency levels and get kids where they should be if they hadn't had a pandemic experience. But even with that amount of support, we should have high expectations of some outcome data that would be very, very happifying.
So we would hope that. That said, the pandemic was extraordinary in that it affected kids in ways that, we're not even sure, especially in mental health or social emotional issues. So we'll have to see. Again, we hope that the department has been tracking the initiatives that are being implemented, so that we can know better which initiatives have made a bigger impact than others.
Well, Cheri, are there other organizations that are doing this kind of work like you are? Are there others that are interested to know that are doing this sort of oversight and questioning? I know you are diligent in finding out what's going on at the board level and legislatively. I know that, we could spend a whole bunch of time on that, and we will go to one legislative outcome, which is good news shortly. But are there others that, and are there is there anybody really dedicated to knowing what is going on with
looking at K-12? I think we are probably the only association that's really been focused on this. That said, there are individuals and there are other community organizations that perhaps might focus in on a certain area. So, for example, at the last board meeting, they're going through this whole strategic planning implementation process, but there was a nonprofit on the island of Kauai who was very focused on mental health. And, they've asked specific questions about monitoring and accountability. And so we're appreciative of that kind of voice.
Okay, that's very good to hear. There is some interest. Well, okay, I think that's another topic, and going forward, as there are some discovery materials to discuss, let's take a look at it. But we need to watch these numbers on these assessments to see if there's any wiggling at all either way.
Right. So one thing that we did advocate for, as well as some others, so the strategic plan implementation plan has key performance indicators, but there still hasn't been articulation of targets. So we encourage the department to set targets, near term, long term, maybe school targets, because without something to aim for, we don't know whether we're going to make the mark or not make the mark. The department refers to making progress a lot, which is, of course, what we want. But we also want to know whether the strategies that we're employing are actually making a difference. And so for that reason, we think that the department should have an idea of what, again, what initiatives and strategies are making a positive impact, and we would hope that they could anticipate what expected results would be and targets.
Yes, that is fair. That certainly an encouraging thought that they would do something about that. Now, I do understand that there were the additional positions put into place using this funding source, or this funding source set it up so that the department could do that. Are those making a big difference insofar as you can see? I know they haven't been in that long. I don't even think it's been a year.
Right. So $10 million of ESSER funds were used to put 4 positions in every complex, and there are 15 complexes that were supposed to address data, healthy schools, healthy habits, effective instruction, and professional teacher development. We're still waiting for the answers as to how these positions have contributed to adding value. We're not asking for dollar per outcome, but we would like to at least know how these positions have helped the schools, for example, and whether or not the department thinks it is a good investment and what lessons they've learned.
Yes, very good. All right, moving on to some really good news out of the legislature, which has been in the news lately, and that is the early childhood accomplishment, which is the state will fund now, 400 and something elementary or pre-kindergarten classrooms, or actually units, not just classrooms, but schools, right? 400.
Right. So there were a couple of laws passed in the past few years to address the need to have all 3 and 4-year-olds have access to quality early learning opportunities. And the legislature has followed up and allocated funds. I think it's $200 million to the school facilities agencies, the school facility authority that is tasked with renovating and also building preschool classrooms for our state pre-K program or charter school. So it has to be a state program, and there's funds for facilities. Also, this past legislature, a bill was passed to help increase subsidies to families. In the state, it's called Preschool Open Doors. And it was expanded to provide families subsidies for 3-year-olds in addition to 4-year-olds. Right now, it's only 4-year-olds, but there's going to be an expansion to 3-year-olds. And also the subsidy was upped from, I think, $700 to $900 to $1,200 to $1,500. So there's been an effort from the state, and it has been driven by our lieutenant governor, who feels that this early learning initiative, the state has been wanting to do it for a long time, but it's never actually been consummated. So she has put a lot of effort into driving work in this area so that we can not only have the facilities, but next the help for working families. And there's other steps along the way, like workforce and actually making sure that our state has a good balance and has a multi-pronged approach. Because right now we have mostly private preschools and a very small percentage of public preschools. And we want to expand that, but in a way that's not going to cannibalize the preschools won't cannibalize each other, and that will have a healthy organic growth.
Well, that's really interesting. Now, these preschools that we do have that are private are very expensive, and are they? So there's that issue. Would those subsidies be something people? Oh, these would be free, of course, because they'd be kind of attached to the public school system.
Actually, the private preschools would be helped very much by these subsidies, because the families would receive these subsidies, and they could choose their provider. So this is for the subsidies would be for the private preschools. The public preschools, of course, would be free to families.
Yeah.
So the purpose of the original act was to increase access, provide access to all 3 and 4-year-olds in 10 years. And we do have 450 classrooms on the 450 classrooms in total to be able to fill the need.
So do you think that is a match? I mean, they will be able to fill the need, the 450 preschools, that's going to take care of the population of 3 and 4-year-olds?
I'm very hopeful that this state initiative brings focus to making sure that we do have the facilities, the help to families, and also the program. So making sure that we have enough teachers and aides. And I think there's tremendous focus and there's a lot of collaboration. And so I'm very hopeful that we can succeed at this effort.
Okay, and that's so good you bring up the teachers and the aides, which was going to be my last question, because of course we're not overflowing with teachers for K-12. And so now we've got these pre-K teachers who, and if they're going to become, you probably don't know this, but I'll just ask it quickly. Will they become a part of the public school payment system? Will they be included in, maybe they haven't decided that yet. Is the Department of Education going to extend itself downward then?
Yes. So for our public school, our public preschool program, the teachers employed will be treated just like the K-12 teachers. So they'll be part of.
So all of them will not be paid enough then. So not just the but maybe that'll get better as we go ahead, because I've often thought that it was that structural enhancement that pre-K would bring to the DOE that was one of the obstacles, right? But I think we can thank Sylvia Luke, is our
Lieutenant Governor
person here, right, who's responsible for moving this forward, as you said. And I think she deserves a lot of praise and credit for doing something really important. And that may be the secret to start wiggling those numbers up, right? As if we can get these 3-4-year-olds doing the things they need to be doing at that point.
That's correct.
We'll get quickly more performance. Yeah, very good. So we're running out of time, and so I just wanted to say, is there anything you want to say as a closing remark about how things are going and how you see things getting better?
Well, I encourage the community to engage. Public education is, in my opinion, one of the most important things we can focus on for Hawaii's future. The children are our future. We need advocates for our children and our system. We want our DOE to be the best it can be. And sometimes we have to ask hard questions so that we know that our system is trying to be the best that it can be. But that really takes engagement from the public. And for those who want to learn more about HE'e, our website is listed, and please feel free to reach out. And we're very wanting to help educate people about our system and teaching people on how to be able to engage authentically.
Well, thank you, Cheri Nakamura, Director of the Coalition HE'e. That's Hui for Education Excellence. And it sounds like you're doing a huge job, and wish you well in that. Look forward to hearing more about how it goes as things develop in this post-pandemic world, where I'm hoping we're going to see a lot of accomplishments and changes in the way our students perform. I'm Stephanie Dalton, the host of this biweekly show, The State of Hawaii. We've been talking with Cheri Nakamura, the director of HE'e, about education and the way it works in Hawaii, and what are some of the recent advances and challenges that we have going forward. So I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you so much, viewers, for tuning in and listening. Mahalo and aloha.
Thank you so much for watching ThinkTech Hawaii. If you like what we do, please like us and click the subscribe button on YouTube and the follow button on Vimeo. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and donate to us at thinktechhawaii.com. Mahalo.